Afternoon, guys. Today I just wanted to have a quick conversation about things that get thrown around as compliments to black people that really aren't compliments. So in the past, oh man, I've heard quite a few of these too, so it's gonna be fun. And if you guys have anything else that you've experienced or heard that needs to be added to the list, or just stuff that I may not have heard of that you've encountered that's just been really messed up and kind of made you do a double take, like, wait a minute. I hope you guys leave it for me in the compliments, because I'm again excited to talk about this one. So some people like to make the statement or share this statement towards like black friends, black co-workers, and things like that, oh man, you're so articulate, or just like, you know what, you're a lot different than any other black person I met. You're different from the rest of them. And holy shit, is that not a compliment? That's about the most backward ass form of compliment that I've ever heard in my life, right? So it's being said under the circumstance of like, you know what, I really like you, you're a good person. That means you're not like the rest of the blacks, right? And like a lot of times, I'll give it to you, man, like sometimes this can even be said innocently, right? Where it's the person that's saying it doesn't realize the implicit racism that's underneath the comment. They don't understand that what they're saying is making the implication that what a black person normally isn't good, right? Because that's exactly what's being said, and sometimes people don't understand that, right? Like telling somebody that they're not like the rest of black people, like what does that mean, right? Like what are you trying to say with that? Are you saying that I'm good because I have elements of humanity that remind you of yourself, and this is something that you've never encountered from a black person before? It's littered, right, with just this overall feeling that just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, man. And it's something that I feel like is worth talking about, because racism isn't always just overt, right? And like the last video that I made, I talked about an experience I had in high school that was pretty clearly overt racism. Like it doesn't get much more clearly racist than having a sign that says nigger on plastered on your things, right? Like that's, I think we can call a spade a spade. That was probably the worst metaphor I could have used. Talking about racism, right? Oh God. But I think we can all agree, man, that that's clearly racism, right? But what doesn't always get talked about are what is called microaggressions, right? And I know I'm talking to a smart group, and I'm not saying if you don't know this word that you aren't smart if you never heard this term, because I have a lot of people that come from international communities and stuff too. And when we say microaggressions, we mean racist or prejudiced statements or ways of behaving that are subtle or not outright aggressive, right? Like they're a lot more like insidious, a lot more I feel like a lot more sinister than outright racism is, because as we know, right, like racist attitudes have been getting called out so much more over, and it's been going on for years, right? And that's an amazing thing. I'm glad. But the thing about it is, it's not like racism has been completely eradicated, right? There are still plenty of racist people out there. Now it just goes under different guise, right? It has a different disguise, and it's a lot sneakier than it used to be. Instead of going around calling people colors, Negroes, throwing out the N-word wherever you feel like doing it, people are now using coded language, or just using their racist beliefs and their racist ideologies in a much more passive aggressive manner, right? And that's where like words and statements like what I began this conversation with come from. Like that idea that telling a black person that they're not like other black people is like some form of high compliment when being black, well, there's a lot of things that go into with that statement, right? With the first being that black culture, black American culture isn't a monolith, man. Like, it's not, we are not a monolith. Y'all seen that Key and Peele sketch? But it was correct, man. Like, it's not a monolithic culture. Like, the black people that you meet on the East Coast are going to be different than the people you meet on the West Coast, who are different than the people in the Midwest, who are different than the people down South, who are different than the people up North. There's not this thing where, like, because you know one black person or you've seen one black person on television or something like that, now you've met them all. Right? That's not how it works, man. The same way that individual members of whatever race you may be have their own distinct personalities, and you don't feel like just because somebody's met another white person, Hispanic person, Asian person from the same ethnic descent as you, doesn't mean that they can go to every other person now and say, like, oh, you know what, I feel like I know that person pretty well, I know how they do things. And it's weird to me that black culture seems to be treated that way, right? Where people assume for some reason that because an individual is black, there's like certain things that all of us have in common, or that we all do, or that we all like, and we get so oversimplified and generalized and everything, right? And now I want to keep a little bit of nuance in regards to this topic, because this isn't to say that the black community doesn't have culture, right? Or the black American community doesn't have culture. Just like there's elements of like Irish culture, Jewish culture, Hispanic culture. The black American community absolutely has a culture to it, man. And it is different things like shows, music, famous artists that grow up in the culture, like certain household things that I've talked with other black people about who we never even met before that meeting where we had this conversation, but we had things that we both experienced during our childhood and stuff like that, where like sometimes you just walk and speak with another black person on the street, or just you walk past another black person and you just like wave and nod, and there's almost like this connection that happens, right, without even any words being necessary, or you necessarily knowing the person. And I think that does have to do with black culture. So like I can understand where people can make the statement that there are things that are associated with black people, but by that same token, why is it the things that get associated with black culture these negative and harmful stereotypes, rather than the stuff that makes us great, that makes us like one of the most imitated cultures on earth, that so many people want to be like, and to just that cannibalize the culture? When we talk about the discussion on like racism and just prejudice, and how people make the statements that we were mentioning before about like you being different than the others, it's one of those things where they completely disregard all the positive elements and all the positive things that black culture, black people, black artists, black scientists, black engineers, all these things that have been brought to the table by people of color, and instead they go off of these just shallow, unbelievably surface level, unnuanced, unthought about opinions about black people being murderers, or all of us loving like terrible rappers and out here to like kill and rob, and just like, you know, like the generic stuff that gets brought up when the conversation is had and all that, right? And it's just so strange to me how when we talk about black culture, instead of being honest about what it is and looking at the whole diaspora of everything that's going on, it's literally relegated to like the like thug mentality, or just or like the most just harmful and disingenuous elements of black culture, and that's not even relegated to black culture, right? But it's the things that get brought into the conversation. And I think that's trash, right? Like, if you want to talk about it, then you can't do it without a little bit of nuance. You have to have some honesty and sincerity and look at the topic for what it is. And I just don't feel like when the conversation gets brought up in that context, in the context of what we've been talking about, I don't think that's something that's always said. It seems like almost all of us have been through like experiences where we've experienced like certain prejudices or certain comments or certain situations that for some reason seem to be common amongst a black person living in America. And this whole the whole microaggressive statement thing we've been talking about, the whole like passive aggressive language thing that we've been talking about is one of them, where black people seem to kind of get the human element taken out of them sometimes, right? And it gets turned into like this cartoonish, just stereotypical version of what a black human being is. And it's really sad to see, man, because you miss out on a lot of good people and a whole lot of nuance that way. And it's also strange to me that people feel like you can act a color as well, right? The fact that people feel like if you say like, oh, like, people often make the statement that like, oh, you act too black, or oh, like you're acting like a white guy, like that kind of stuff, man. And it's weird to me, I think, to say that this isn't to say that different cultures don't have different practices or ways of speaking and other things like that, because they absolutely do, right? Like, of course we know that unique to every culture is there's different things that come with being a member of that culture, right? But it's not like people are saying like, oh, you know, you act like just like a black American from from Brooklyn, or like, oh man, you act just like a black American guy from Missouri would. Like, it's not, they're not giving it like a specific language or origin to the culture. They're just saying you act black. And with that statement is the implicit statement that all black people act one way, or all black people act like this, right? And that's just such a sad and gross oversimplification of an entire race of people. And I just want people listening to this, where if you happen to be white or a member of another race and you said something like that to like a friend, or like the Oreo statement, right? Where like, I don't know if you guys ever heard that, but where somebody will tell a black person they're an Oreo because they're black on the white side. Black on the white side? Damn, black on the white side. No, they're black on the outside but white on the inside. And then it's like, holy hell, man, like, we're there's just so many messed up, there's layers to that, right? But I've heard that before, and it's coming. Some people try to use it as a term of endearment, right? Where they're saying like, oh, you're just like, oh, you're good, man. You're just like us white guys. Like, you're all right, man. You're not like the rest of them. Again, going back to the statement that we made before, and telling a black person that they aren't black enough, when one, you're not black yourself, which adds a whole different level of just virility and anger to the statement. Like, one, who are you of all people to try to tell me what's black or not, when you aren't a member of the race and you haven't been through any of the experiences that I've been through because of it? And two, I'm getting triggered, man. Two, why are you equating like goodness with whiteness, right? Like, are you saying that anybody that has white skin is automatically a good person and better to be around than other people? That automatically makes them better than black people? Are you trying to say that the things you've seen black people like, or that you've seen black people on TV do, say, and use, are those automatically inferior to what you consider typical white American culture? But even that, right? Like, what the hell is white American culture, right? Like, people always talk about like there being, people have no problem seeing the nuance in white culture, right? With like, you have some people that are like punk rock, you have some people that are in the hardcore scene, the emo scene, you have some people that are into like the more what do they call it, like the preppy type style and stuff, man. You have some people that are like the rich sort of upper class white person attitude. You have like the quote unquote redneck hillbilly white culture. Like, you see what I mean, man, is that people have no problem creating divisions within white culture, but when we just ask for that same level of nuance and that same level of detail and just that same level of empathy to be given to the relationships between black people, it's nowhere to be found, man. And I think that's just, it's not right, and it's something that attention needs to be brought to, and we just need to bring attention to the fact that like this isn't cool to say to people, man. Like, if you have friends or loved ones or other people that you said that to, then like, I'm not trying to tell you you're a terrible person, but it's just a matter of kind of checking that, right? Of being okay with like learning and saying that, man, like, I have done and said some messed up stuff in the past and I didn't think about how this might be affecting them. Let me correct that. That's awesome, man. If you can do that, that's growth. Like, that's maturity, and that's what I hope for all of us. And through this video, I just want to bring attention to statements like that, man, and just like to call it out, because it really does hurt people, it offends people, and sometimes people don't always understand what is offensive about it, and sometimes they just need a little bit of education on it, right? So that's kind of what this was for, man. So I hope you guys are having a good day. Look forward to talking to you guys in the next one.